Fun. Welcome to another episode of A Podcast. Your host, Stephen Maxted here. And the guest today is William Aitken with Harvest Today Canada. William and I recently connected through doing some work in indoor agriculture at University of Manitoba. You have a little research wall there, and we got connected, went for coffee, and now we're chatting on the regular about your product and conversing about it. I just think it's one of the coolest things. So I was excited to get you on the podcast here. So thank you for making time. I know you're busy. You have walls going up in multiple places. We caught you in a window to be here today. You're leaving tomorrow to go Western Canada. And you guys we'll talk more about your company, but thank you for joining us. And William, I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself a little bit more. Tell us about yourself and where life's at today.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks again for having me on the show here, Steve. So, yeah, like as you mentioned, we're Harvest Today Canada, and we're very excited to be able to bring our product, the Harvest Wall, into the vertical farming industry. We started this journey, well, I'd say back in the latter end of 2020. It actually kind of started a few years ago. My uncle was dabbling in the vertical farming industry, and he's our CEO and founder, one of the main founder of the company here. And he started looking into vertical farming about 10 years ago. Figured that it wasn't really shaped up into a very profitable industry at the time, and so he decided to go sailing. So he and my auntie Brenda, they took off sailing for about 5 years, went around the globe and came back, and they thought, and there's food security issues all over the globe. He one of his stories is pulling up onto a tropical beach, and the kids were pulling up with cans of Coke and bags of chips in their hand. And as lush and as green as the forest is the background behind you there, Steve, it's nothing that you would expect to see, when the kids come out of the bush carrying pop and bags of chips, right? So
yeah.
So there's issues all over the globe, and so when he came back and COVID struck, we were thinking vertical farming is the industry to be in. So we were connected with a few organizations, and some of those dealings had fallen through. And so we were looking at the industry as a whole and thinking, why are some of these products not being able to fulfill the exact need for vertical farming? And, well, these ones here are too cumbersome, or this one's too big, or this one uses too much energy, or this one isn't, it's like a big chicken rotisserie, or, well, this one's just a conveyor belt. You put a seed on one side, and then all of a sudden 6 weeks later, you're going to have a full head of lettuce coming out, and
Right.
What's happening to the plant on the inside, and there's all these mechanics and moving parts and emitters and all these sorts of things. And then when you get into the science behind it, one of the key components as well that we felt was missing in a lot of the vertical farming industry is the use of an organic growing medium. Everybody likes using rock wool, or they like using, just having an aeroponic, and, all of that doesn't really emulate nature as well as it could. So when we were designing the system, we were thinking, how can we incorporate organic growing mediums into the Harvest Wall? So what we decided to do is stack it, vertically, as opposed to using flat beds and NFT tracks and ebb and flow systems and all that sort of stuff. We just thought, let's use the cubic. We'll space it out. We'll break everything down to a tile. Once we broke everything down to a tile, it was 8 inches by 16 inches high with 6 plant ports, interconnects to one to another to form up the Harvest Wall. And with that, we've just been able to scale it out from there. So it's a closed loop plumbing system. There's a water tank in the bottom. Water gets pumped up to the top to a spill trough, and then it just simply cascades down the back. So it's nothing too complex.
Well, We have a lot to unpack from that. That was a killer intro. You just dove right into it. You answered like, well, we got a lot covered there, and a lot to go back on. So I think for like listener, a couple of things to talk about there. And I'm on the other screen here, just so the listener knows. I do have like the website here is just kind of a reference point for visuals for me. I've seen the product in person. I've seen it working. It is very cool, but it's just there's a lot of details on some of the images here that I want to touch on, and a lot of the stuff that you just went through there. So a couple things. One, it is a vertical wall with basically doors that open, that you have access points on the back end of this system to, if you need to get in there. I know that you were looking into the details of where you were today, but you were at a place where you guys do have a grow wall and doing some maintenance on them, or whatever. I don't think it's that common that it needs to be done. In this case, it was just something that broke on there that you're out there fixing. But in a sense, what I'm seeing right now and what the viewer will see on the website is a grow wall. Let's pretend that this was one. There's basically handles in the middle. Middle right here, if there's kind of handles almost like a fridge door that open up and really give you a full perspective on what's going behind there. Then you have the ability to pull out, in this case, I'll call them like kind of like pods, but they're not really pods because that's more like the aero farming systems style thing. There were these, as you mentioned, like you've kind of working with some companies around finding an organic option for these to go in there and fit nicely. You got them in 6-pack like sections in here too. So you've kind of made like a really cool, I don't want to call it like simple, but simple to understand system. Once you look at it here, you're like, oh, that's great. And you have the parts that are able to interchange if something you want to adjust it, you can do it.
Yeah, and as we say, it's not a spaceship; it's a harvest wall, right? So it's very simple in nature and design. As I mentioned, it scales together. It just click and locks. 4 mil hex screws to put everything together. So it's your standard IKEA Allen wrench, and then it's simple PEX connects that you use for your plumbing. So it's nothing too complex. And the reason that we had designed it like this, Stephen, is because we're trying to situate ourselves as a global company, right? Yeah. And one of the solutions and one of the issues is if I'm to take a wall and to sell it up to somebody in Yellowknife or up into Nunavut, up in Rankin Inlet, or we have some clients over in Africa, at the end of the day, if something pops or breaks or what have you, I want them to be able to go to the local store and source that supply themselves, as opposed to calling me up and saying, William, this broke, or this lever broke, or what have you, and right. Then I'm thinking 6 weeks later is when I can get you the part, and by that time your crop is finished. You know what I mean? There could be so many other issues that arise from having a window of 4 weeks or 6 weeks for me to be able to replace that part, right? So everybody always gets extra parts in their kits and in with their walls, just in case if a PEX Connect doesn't hook up properly, or if it breaks or what have you, right? So therefore they're able to fix it should anything happen.
Awesome. That's very forward thinking. And then what was the thing that you just said there that just cued a memory for me? It was something from my dad, actually. We've done some woodworking projects together. I usually drag him into something, and I built a sauna a couple of years ago during COVID, actually, and he made the comment, he's like, well, we're not making a piano a couple times in terms of like, it didn't have to be so perfect because we're not, it's dialed in. We took our time measuring everything, but wood is not always easiest, and it just strung a chord with me there is a good memory that I have. Mm-hmm. And what you just said there in terms of like, simplicity sometimes is the answer. It doesn't have to be this such involved system. I mean, even you see that struggle with charging phones. It'd be nice if someone just said, we're using this, that's it. Then everything could be interchanged, right? That we wouldn't have the iPhone, Android issues as much, right? Just the way that you just illustrated that, I think was great. And it's nice to see. I mean, and one of the things that just popped in my head, and I don't know if there's a specific answer or if it's just kind of like a maximizing of square footage question here. So if we don't have it, that's okay. But the angle that you decided to have the plants like go at in here and have like the grow area fit is there was some science and research behind that when you guys were doing it? Is it because they can all be touched by light regardless of the angle themselves. The plant will adapt to that. But was there anything specifically done that way on the walls here that you can touch on, and how did the 6 come to be versus other sizes and stuff?
So that's pretty much your highest plant density ratio that you can have for spacing wise.
For that, oh wow, great.
Yeah, so it's 6 inches on center, and then 6 inches on center up and down, and 4.5 on center side to side, and so that allows for the maximum growth. So and then the cup themselves is on a 45-degree angle, and the reason being is to provide for the structural support on the brim of the Jiffy cup. So when we max out at 720 plants, we stack them 5 tiles high. So in a 5 times 6 is 30. So basically one row is 30, and then we can do 8 rows per side, which maxes out at 360 plants per side, and then we double that up. We do also now we've created a harvest panel, or the harvest farm wall, and so what we can do is a 20-foot run of harvest wall by cup linking the flood rail and the tank together. We've gotten it out as far as 20 foot, and then with the 20 foot, we actually can put 1,800 plants on a 20 foot by 7 foot high by 2 foot wide space.
Very cool. Well, what can you grow on these walls? I see a variety of plants in here. I mean, obviously you can kind of use them for, we'll call it like aesthetic stuff, but I know that the target is truly to like indoor grow and produce food, as you just mentioned, like food security stuff. So is there any limits?
Yeah, when we envisioned it, it was all about food security. But now we're getting into the cannabis side of things. People are really liking it for the cloning ability, getting it to a veg state, and then taking it and moving it off into a larger pot. What this does for cannabis growers is it actually maximizes their budding room plus their vegetation room. So now they can really reduce that vegetation room down to maximize budding space. We can do ornamentals. Like numerous people are growing them for the start in the spring, so then they can take, because again, it's an organic growing medium that we're allowing the plants to start off in. You can take that and then you can plant it and transport it over into a garden. So if you have tomatoes or cucumbers, and if you want a few extra weeks of veg to get a little bit larger fruit when it comes to harvest, that's one of the supplemental reasons or uses that people have been finding with it. And then when it gets back to what can you grow in it, basically, Stephen, you can't grow, apple trees. You're not going to be able to grow cucumbers or large cucumbers or pumpkins or anything like that. We are seeing success though with cabbage, artichoke. We our friend Cody Needham up in Edmonton, he's growing artichoke. Our relationship with New Leaf Farms, they're growing tomatoes, and they're growing string beans, and they're growing strawberries, and just other additional tier 2 type of plants, not aside from the leafy greens and your herbs and things of that nature. With your tier 1s, people are seeing success with smaller fruiting.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. And I mean, to the point of like maximizing square footage, and I just pulled up the page here to like reference the fact that some of these are double-sided, and I just wanted to look at the specs specifically here, and some of them are one-sided. So you truly could maximize a room, like the room that you're in or I'm in, and use all sides to have things flat on there. I'm sure that there's a better system for this, and then choosing the quality lighting that you need. I'm assuming like spending a little bit more time looking at LEDs recently. There's a few companies out there that I'm sure are a great fit for what you guys are doing here. And it's just, it's kind of crazy to see like 720 plants on here. You start off at 144 on a single-sided wall, and then you can get up to the Mega 720 is what you guys have on here. And I think you nailed it ahead of season, especially in Canada. Being where we're both from here, ahead of season, that would be huge. Even greenhouses, I'm sure that this is a good case to be followed there, because you can start the plants off even for indoor grows. Like you mentioned, like not everything's going to be a fit to finish in here, but in terms of starting off, I mean, if you can finish in the wall, great. But I could see many use cases on here, and that's very cool to see.
Many applications for it. So, if you, as you mentioned, with the single-sided wall, I can go into an area and I can mount it, the wall, to an existing surface. For example, at MITT, at the college, we have a 360 port wall in the cafeteria where the kids were being able to chop off the wall and use it for the culinary purposes. They are going to be taking it now, and they're going to put it in the front lobby to one of their other buildings, and they're going to use it as an ornamental. So that kind of dovetails into, how many different kind of uses can you find for the same wall, or you know what I mean? It's pretty
Totally.
pretty universal in that respect.
Yeah, I just think that's. Well, what about you mentioned kind of like up north, and something that pops into my mind as far as like food security and frankly the economics behind transporting food, because a lot of time if you're I think we might have even said this one time when we were meeting, when you're moving lettuce, it's really a lot of it is just moving the water around with that product, and essentially if you could grow lettuce up north in a situation, you get a really big impact in that. I mean, it's just one product and one vegetable, but it might be the the gateway or the segue into other growing opportunities up north, versus suffering from, like you were mentioning, like drinking the Coke and food that doesn't seem to go bad, that can't be good for you.
No,
Yeah.
the truck bed lettuce that we get coming up from Mexico and California and Arizona. I mean,
Yeah.
I always say I may as well go to my lawnmower and flip it over and scrape it out and have that as a salad, because there's just as more nutritional value in that as there is in a box coming off of a truck that's been driving for the last 4 days and it's traveled 6,000 kilometers, right? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't really realize that you lose 50% of all of the nutritional value in your leafy greens within the first 48 hours that it's been harvested. So,
Yeah.
and then the stats, they vary from plant to plant, and it's even more so when you're dealing with spinach. I believe spinach loses 90% of its nutritional value within the first 24 hours, right? So,
Yep.
what are we eating? And now when you go to the grocery store and you're looking at, three heads of romaine, and it's $11.95, and you're thinking, holy geez. And then you look at it all and it's all red and half of it's spoiled, and you're chopping it all off, and you can only really get the good stuff when you peel off a few layers, and now you're throwing all that produce out when you go home, and everybody's thinking, geez, what's happening, right? So at the end of the day, I could put a harvest wall in your home, set up a nice little home kit for a couple grand, warranty it for 10 years for you, and if you have a house of 4 or 5 people, that the economics to that is absolutely massive. Not only is it financially rewarding for you, but it's rewarding for you at the end of the day, because you're providing more nutritional value for your kids. And then a lot of people don't realize that how all that kind of stems into all the other aspects of your life when you're dealing with mental health and obesity and heart diseases and type 2 diabetes and energy levels and everything like that are kind of bombarding and kind of pounding down on society as we move forward. We're thinking, how can we combat these things? And at the end of the day, it's really, it all starts with what you put on your plate.
Totally. Absolutely. No, I think you hit on some really important points there in terms of nutritional value and how that nutrition is lost through parts of the supply chain, or it can be lost. Yeah. What on that note, okay, so like we have like the watering system in the back and stuff, and plants themselves will grow and produce these things. But are there any inputs that you like do put in the back? Like there's sometimes nutrients, and this is part of my egg background thinking in here is like there. And I've seen some of these things that shows. I was at one in November in Vegas, around like lighting and indoor grows and stuff there, and there was some product there that like liquid nutrients. Do is that, can you put that through the walls? Is that something that can be done to become a supreme plant grower on the walls, I guess, as it were?
So we've designed the harvest wall, but we've also been able to pair up with other industry experts. For example, Blue Lab. We are a full-out rep for Blue Lab. We shared a booth with them over at Green Tech in Amsterdam just a few weeks ago. And
Awesome.
so they hook up the whole IntelliDosers. They have a gamut of different sensors and different monitoring devices that you can use. So we were able to totally adapt into those and integrate that into the harvest wall. So every harvest wall has universal connections on the tank, and so therefore, if you need to hook it up to a 500-gallon water reservoir and have a nutrient doser, which will monitor your NPKs for you, watch your
Nice.
EC, watch the ambient temperature of the water itself. And then we also work with a great company over in Calgary called New Leaf Farms, and they have a whole atmospheric condition technology to be able to maximize your climate controls. Water. They have a really cool water reclamation system. So for example, the other month they have 14,000 plants in their plant factory. It is a zip grow system that they're currently using. We're working with them so then we can create a harvest factory, one of their plant factories with harvest walls in it. But with that being said, zip grow systems use a lot more water than we do through the harvest wall, and they had used 600 gallons of water to water 14,000 plants last month, and that's inclusive of flushing your toilets and running your dishwasher and drinking water and washing your hands. And when you walk into the New Leaf Farms, they also have numerous at-home systems in their front foyer, and so they've got to keep those filled, right? So it's the amount of water that they use per for the 14,000 plants is absolutely minimal because they have the technology to be able to reclaim the water that they put into the plant that the plants are perspiring, right? So it's super cool.
Very neat.
Yeah,
that is very cool. Okay, so we covered the places where stuff that can be grown, where they're currently kind of like grown in terms of walls and stuff like that. You guys as a company, and you just mentioned the Amsterdam thing, I think it's important to note here that you guys are international, right? It says
yes,
Canada on here and you cover Canada. There is someone in the States and someone in Europe that represents the company right now, and you guys are, no pun intended, growing.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, man. We our HQ is in Denver,
Okay.
based in Boulder Valley, and that's where everything is made in the United States right now. So it's made in Boulder, and then we do have a plastic extruder over in Reno, in Nevada. So everything's U.S. made. We have numerous distributors across the United States, walls in schools and correction facilities. We just were able to complete a cool project with a vineyard in New Mexico. We're doing we have a full CEA 2,500 square foot or 3,500 square foot CEA with a great group out of St. Thomas. We're working with another group over in Aruba, Cancun. We've sold a couple walls to a couple in Hawaii, and what they've done with their walls there is they've just bolted it to the side of the house. Because no better place to have some really good sunlight than Hawaii. So they have it on the side of their house. They spray it down with their hose in the morning and before they go to bed, and that's all they really have to do.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then our group over in Europe is doing really well. They've just got some really good traction out of the trade show in Amsterdam. We have a great group of guys in India and over in Dubai, and then we have another couple who are just getting started in Australia. So
Wow.
it's pretty exciting. Yeah.
Cool. Things are happening fast. I didn't realize that you're reaching out that far. That's great news. And what like I said, like you got industry partners, these walls are going up. What's I guess what's next and upcoming? I think that we mentioned before here that you guys are kind of pursuing some arrays to help with this growth right now. What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so right now we were able to get on the platform for Net Capital. It's a crowdfunding organization based out of Boston. we're after 1.235 million. So if anybody wants to be able to be a part of our journey, no better way to be a part of a company than to own a piece of it, right? So we are throwing out shares for that. With that, what it's going to allow us to do is get some more tooling in place. So I had mentioned we have a 2-inch cup. We have 6 of them on it per tile. With the crowdfunding, one of our first endeavors to undertake is to create a 3 1/4-inch cup, and then that would put 4 per tile. But it would also get us into just a different level of being able to grow things like peppers and like larger zucchinis and cucumbers and larger tomatoes and things of that nature. We are going to be designing a trellis system, so then anything that's vining or climbing would be able to do so on the wall. And yeah, it's awesome. Going to benefit us, very greatly for the capital raise. So that's kind of where our focus has been over the last little while here, is being able to expand and take our product to the next level.
Absolutely. No, it makes lots of sense, expanding the product offering right now, especially as you're getting into other industries. And I'm sure that injection of funding, whatever level ends up coming in for you guys there, will be very useful as you're getting into other countries. That's great to hear. What else do we need to know about Harvest Today? You've hammered through a lot. You did great. Like, I don't know. What else would we like to cover? I'm taking it more casual for a second here, but
the versatility of the product itself, Stephen. Just so you know, like we're in houses. We're working with the judicial system. I'm starting off a really cool campaign here to get harvest walls in all the schools in Manitoba. So working with the provincial government in order to create curriculum. One of the goals. I probably won't see it in our lifetime or anything like that, but hopefully my kids and grandchildren will be able to see the benefit of having, even just a harvest wall in the classroom where the kids are growing their own, 2 ounces of leafy greens every day that they need for their daily intake. They can have it as lunch in the classroom itself, and that they've grown it themselves. So as I had mentioned before, it not only will it provide them with better nutrition, but when you throw greenery into classrooms, test scores go up, test anxiety goes down. Right, the kids are taught more teamwork. They're taught more patience. Right, they're taught different life skills. For the kids to be able to dip their hand into the coco coir or into any type of other organic growing medium that they choose to grow with, and just have that texture and that touch. Right, that's one of the things that's really missing in schools these days, is the actual tangible asset of learning. Right, so kids come in and they can see that harvest wall, and then not only does it supplement the nutrition in their diet for today, but, in 50 years from now, heart diseases will go down. All that mental health that we had been speaking about, like with depression and all the anxieties and all the different social pressures that people are faced with on a daily, to be able to bring that down for society, it's one of those unmeasurable benefits that you'll see it, but you won't really be able to see it because society will have that total shift, right?
Absolutely. No, I think you nailed it great there. That'd be awesome to see a product like that get into schools and be able to touch. I think back to when many people first settled in Canada, and like parts of my family with homesteads and small farms. This would be kind of like the modern day of that in some ways, if you can grow inside along with our lifestyles, and then having that in schools. I think, because you're not going to have the field trip every day to the farm unless you are living rural in the province or in Canada, and you have that everyday real experience on a bigger scale. But I think this is a great way to facilitate that. What a neat way to be hands-on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the product, like as you just said, it's one of those things. One of my good friends, he had said, you're kind of like the grand piano or the bacon and eggs story. You have this pork belly. Well, how can you take that and sell it to people? Well, you got to turn it into bacon, and all of a sudden it's a breakfast thing, right? The grand piano. Well, you've built this beautiful piano. How are you going to be able to sell it to people? Well, you create the piano room, right? And now all of a sudden people have this, right? So it's the same thing with the wall. We've created a wall, so what are we going to do now? Well, wine cellars will turn into little
Programs.
yeah, take a bedroom and convert it. I have a great client over in Minnedosa. Her
yes.
yeah, her company's called the Greenhouse Next Door, right? And so what we met them at Brandon Egg Days. So we went to Egg Days because we wanted to show traditional farmers how they could take their skill set and apply it in a modern day setting, right? And who knows worse lettuce in January, February than when you go to a town at the end of the road, and they have to suffer another 500 kilometers after the produce hits Winnipeg and then gets shuttled out from there. The produce could be sitting in Winnipeg for another 2-3 days on the dock, and then it goes to their community, and then it's, so we wanted to showcase to those farmers how they can take the technology and adapt it and provide for their community. So we've received some really good reception from it. One of the best though is Kim in Minnedosa. And so when we met her, she said that they actually purchased the house that was next to them. They were going to mow it down and create a big community garden. And then she thought, I could grow all year round if I just turned the house into a controlled environment agriculture capsule. And we're like, yeah, you could totally. Like that's a great idea. So, she's got 2,600 people in her area. She's now purchased 2 720 walls, so our largest walls. She's kept them as standalone units because she's cleared out all the contents in her living room, and
this is awesome.
Yeah, and she's converting the house next door. So her husband, he's a potato farmer, and he, they send me pictures at 11 o'clock at night, and I think it's absolutely great on, we just got this wall set up, we just did this. But so she's growing in her living room as he's converting the house next door, and then she purchased an even smaller unit. So she's got a 360, or sorry, it's a 288 because she didn't go 5 high. She wanted to go 4 high, double-sided, 2 panels each. So she got a different kind of a wall. And so she's keeping that separate for her herbs. But the demand, she just had an open house at the beginning of the month, and she said everybody was just floored with what she's doing. When you drive past her house, it looks like a forest it's just like your backdrop. You know what I mean? Only she's got she's got the big, artificial lights there. She's got a couple of Science LEDs, another great company that we work with. And yeah, the impact that she's going to have on her community is absolutely huge. But she decided to took the leap. She jumped in, head first, and she's absolutely loving it, and she's absolutely thriving. But it's those kind of stories that are just absolutely great to hear, and to it's humbling to be a part of that, because it's actual change for people that actually need it, right?
Totally. No, I think you nailed it there. I'm excited, actually. It's not that far away. I think we're going to have to do a road trip. Yeah. Go check this out with Kim there. That sounds super great. And something that I think you going to take me to ask about it, but when you guys were at Egg Days, there's certain awards there, and you guys took home, I'll call it like innovation or some kind of new technology award there. I think you guys got your top 3. I think it was second place you guys ended up getting at Egg Days. That was your first time going there.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, so we took second place at the innovation competition for Egg Days. And again, we're just, our humble selves. We went in there and we threw our name in the hat, and we thought, let's take a stab at it. And we were going up against some of the big names in egg. Egg Days is the largest Canadian egg show undercover in all of Canada, right? It draws a crowd of 40,000 people, basically doubles the size of Brandon over 2 days, right? Like it's absolutely, absolutely nuts in Brandon for Egg Days. If nobody's ever been, I mean, I encourage to go just to see a city swell so much. Like it's unbelievable. But yeah, we were up against some pretty heavy hitters, and when we were there, we had people come up to our booth, and they're like, man, I'm grabbing a brochure. I've passed you guys 3-4 times, and everybody's busy. We had 5 people in the booth, and we're constantly talking, drinking your water and chewing your gum and going, oh man, when can I have a bite to eat to lunch? But there's just people coming one after the next, and
Oh my gosh.
it was great. And to have that reception, and to have people come over from other booths and tell us that they've never seen a booth so busy at a trade show than when we were at Ag Days. The reception was just phenomenal. And now we've got numerous projects going across. We picked up a distributor over in Australia through that. We're working with the government in Newfoundland. Right? Like there's so much exposure that was so rewarding from being there. And plus,
Yeah.
It's branded, so we had to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Close to home, and I have had the experience of working in like the ag industry and be there and stuff like that. You're right; it does get lots of attention, and I wasn't there this year to witness this going and happening with you guys there. But I can only imagine the buzz that you would have had there, truly, because there's a lot of traditional ag companies there. That's what I kind of call it, like the industry that I came from, like the chem seed, more commercial scale farming, and there's not often innovation like this at Ag Days, and not a lot of people are thinking on that level all the time. So I'm not totally surprised, though. It's like super great, and kudos to you guys for getting that award, because it's also not easy. There's lots of companies there. As far as that goes, there's they closed down the whole, I don't know what to call it, I guess like convention center of Brandon. Basically it's the hockey rink along with a bunch of other rooms and string of everything between connecting tables and booths everywhere at that show. So that's awesome to hear. But if someone did want to order these, I was just thinking on like the operational side of the business out of Colorado there, like how long does it take to get a wall made? Is inventory kind of ready to go for some of the products? What does that look like? Take me through the journey there of what that would look like for someone if they ordered some today. Obviously, the bigger the order, understandably, might take a little bit longer.
Depending if you want 100 walls or something like that, it would probably take about six to 8 weeks, right? But if somebody wants a wall for their house, let's say a 90 port wall, single panel, would typically take about 30 days for us to be able to get it together, and then another week to a week and a half to ship it up here. Something that small would come fully assembled. Anything larger than a single panel wall. So a single panel is 3 tiles wide by 5 tiles high. And the reason that we call that our harvest panel is because it's 90 plant ports, and it doesn't flex, right? So if I do four wide, then I got some flex in it. With the harvest panel design, we just use 2 latches at the top, so we've taken it off of the hinges, and then the panel would just fall forward, and then you take it out, and then you would take it, pressure wash it if you need to clean it or anything like that. But yeah, typically about 30 days for something like that. And then larger scale orders, 30, 60 days kind of window. Depending on how large it is, we usually go and do the install for you for free. So I would go in and help you set up the wall and make sure that it's running and make sure that everything's set up properly for you. We do have some walls that are just kind of hanging on the wall itself, which we don't recommend. So we do have some installation behind it and some guidelines that we do have to kind of put in place, to make sure that the warranties are up to date. But typically, after you place an order, 30 to 60 days, depending on, the size and the nature and scope. But again, we would sit down with whomever and, kind of plan that out. If somebody wants to do a full CEA, which is controlled environment agriculture, building for their community, we can sit down and do that. We would definitely incorporate the guys over at New Leaf to be able to incorporate their types of technologies into the designing process. But if you want, as I mentioned, a wall for your house, then for sure we could just place it, send it out to you. I could go and hook it up for you if you'd like. But when it gets to that small, a lot of people just kind of like to do it themselves, right? So.
Right, and with that, you said that's the 96 one. That's one I'm looking at right here, right? It's like a single door kind of looking.
Yep.
Yeah. Looks very simple. In terms of like what, like you said, if it comes all assembled like that, great. Yeah. Basically what I'm seeing
you download the app. So there's two ways that you can control the wall.
Cool.
So when we were designing it, we wanted to make it as simple as we possibly could. So we have an app to go with the wall. You would just simply download the app onto your phone. You scan the QR code, or if you just turn it on, typically it'll marry the phone and the app. From there, you would set your watering schedule. So if you want it to run 3 times a day for 3 minutes, that's what you would set it to. So again, that's kind of one of the differences between our system and a lot of the other systems that are out there, is because we are using an organic growing medium, it saturates a lot faster and stays saturated longer than mediums such as rock wool, for example, or like beets, right? Or if you just have an exposed aeroponic root system that you're relying on a mister to turn on every 15 minutes, otherwise you're going to be drying out your roots. So with that being said, on a 720 plant port wall, I typically run it three times a day for 3 minutes, and that's it. So with using a 24 volt DC bilge pump, the amount of electricity that you're using to operate and to water 720 plants 3 times a day may cost you, 18 cents, really after it's all said and done, right? So awesome. You're not constantly flowing water through an NFT. You're not constantly spraying it. But again, it's the beauty of using an organic growing medium. And like when I'm at trade shows and, there's a deep water culture unit sitting beside me. I don't know. I've never gone out into the middle of a lake and pulled a head of lettuce out of the lake. You know what I mean? But that's what deep water culture represents. I've never gone into a waterfall and pulled anything out, but that's like your aeroponic. I've never gone to a river and pulled it out. There's your NFT, right? So whenever I go and pull a plant out anywhere, it's always out of the ground. It's got soil on it. I can shake the roots off and get my hands dirty, right? So
very cool.
Just a big time difference between the two systems.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think you nailed it here. Tons to digest off the episode today already for, I think, the listener. Like, this has been awesome. I was just taking note here. I was like, we walked through the wall system, how it's available. You just mentioned at the end here, and we'll kind of go back and forth though, but we have, great website with lots of information. You have an app that can control the watering. You have a variety of systems, and it looks like you're expanding on that, and you're doing arrays right now. Looks like everything is headed in a very positive direction for you guys as far as that goes. So it sounds very exciting.
Nothing but to grow,
Absolutely. It's what's a good way for folks to get a hold of you? I know that we have the social media side of things. You have Instagram, LinkedIn page, a website. Is there any other social media handles out there for you guys?
No, I think you nailed it.
That's good. And then
they could email me personally. It's we like to keep things simple, so it's just william@harvest.today.
At harvest.today, and that's the same for the website is harvest.today.
Harvest.today. Yeah,
that's where they can find you.
.ca, it's .today.
Yeah, .today. So that's great. I'll include the links in in this as well, listener. So they'll have easy access to find this off the episode here and the clips. Do my best to incorporate all those. And I mean, you have on here too, you have the catalog, the brochure. I think people have a wealth of information on here. And if they need anything else, like you said, they can email you or click the email button on here and it'll get direct to you and your team as far as that goes. So I think we crushed it. So cool. Thank you very much for hopping on today, William. This will be great information to get out about your company. And I'm excited to continue to follow the journey of Harvest today.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me here, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.